this video, I'm gonna be reviewing a bunch of clips of different TV shows that have to do with hearing loss or being deaf, for example. We believe the reason I have hearing loss is because I developed a hole in my ear where it did not belong from chronic ear infections as a kid, and over the years, I slowly have lost more and more hearing, but currently I'm not deaf yet, but I do have trouble hearing. So I know what it's like to not have perfect hearing. So I'm going to see if these shows are like accurate or good or like what, First clip I'm going to be reacting to is going to be The Sound of Metal. The movie about a dude who's a musician who ends up having hearing loss that's slowly going deaf. The scene I'll be reacting to is when he's in a record shop and his hearing starts to go out on him, and he starts to realize that he has hearing problems.
No, Jacob? No, not looking forward to it. I'm terrified. Have questions.
Basically, what happened so far is the dude is looking at a bunch of records, and then all of a sudden he goes from being able to hear people to not being able to hear others. Which I've experienced something similar to that. Like sometimes when I go to get hearing checks done to see how my hearing has progressed, like my hearing loss has progressed, sometimes when they go stick different instruments in my ears to just poke around, see how the ear's looking and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes after they do that, I'll have what I describe as a cotton bud ear. Basically, what that means is for the rest of the day, I'll feel like I have a cotton ball in my ear that I cannot physically take out. My hearing's much more muffled. I have more trouble hearing. I notice my hearing loss a lot more.
He doesn't know everything's acting fine. Like, where are we?
So I can relate to this character a little bit. I'm not going through this exact same thing he is, but I understand what it's like to have days where your hearing is just really bad compared to your normal.
I think we had. Yeah. Hey, wrong tree. Yeah, in New York. That bit machine.
He's basically starting to notice that he's not hearing as well, and I think it's low-key starting to freak him out a little bit, because for most people it would freak them out if they started suddenly having hearing loss, because you don't realize how much sounds can affect you and how much the world relies on the sounds. Until you start to have some hearing trouble, then you realize maybe science is not the greatest all the time. He's starting to realize that he has some hearing trouble, but he decided to just ignore it and just keep on drumming. Which, I mean, when you first start having hearing trouble, a lot of people go through a denial phase was no, it can't be that bad, but in reality, the test will tell you, it is pretty bad. And it's extra frustrating for musicians especially, because they rely on sound for so much. It's a lot harder to stay on beat when you have hearing loss. And it's a lot harder to do music if you have hearing loss. I think that The Sound of Music does a really good portrayal. I'll be looking up if the actors from the clip that I'm reacting to, if they're played by a hearing person or a deaf person. Personally, I'd prefer if someone with hard of hearing loss, or who are deaf would be playing the deaf person, because they can give more authentic experience to the role. and they won't portray so many like stereotypes, or portray it bad, or portray like deafness bad, for example. But I mean, at the end of the day, if the show does a good job portraying deaf people, does a good job making sure to not do like damaging stereotypes, then the show's still gonna be a good show to recommend to people, even though they could have made it even better by having someone who had like hearing loss or who was actually deaf, for example, portray the character. Hopefully that makes sense. The next clip I'll be reacting to is from an episode of Community where Abed decided to learn sign language. Ahmed basically ends up being a girl who is what we assume is deaf since she's using sign language in the show. He treats her very nicely.
Well, senses, please fill out this form, but don't talk to me. I can't hear. Are you deaf? Do you read lips? Garba, 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 garba.
Asked her if she can read lips, which is a very respectful thing to ask people because not all people with hearing loss or who are deaf are able to read lips, but some people are. And even those who can read lips sometimes have trouble. Basically, some sounds can make very similar lip movements. So it can be hard sometimes to be able to tell exactly 100% what you're saying, but usually people who can read lips will get like, most of it. I personally have never been able to read lips. I would struggle with that so hard, so don't assume that everyone who has hearing troubles are really good lip readers, because they're not.
That was gibberish. You're good. I wish I knew sign language.
Are you gonna have
I love that he tried to learn sign language because I think more people in this world should know sign language. Like, for example, I want to learn sign language so I can communicate with people who have worse of hearing than I do, who use sign language, because I think that'd be a fantastic skill to have. So it's always good when you see characters taking the time to learn sign language. Like, it's a very respectful thing, and more people should do it. Language makes the person who uses it feel respected, like they're cared about, and like they're human. Because a lot of time when you have hearing loss, people forget to include you in a conversation because they get annoyed. They just can't hear as normal people do. That you just can't pick up on things that they tell everyone else and have to put in more effort. When in reality, we should all be kinder people. We should all have more patience when it comes to people with hearing loss or who are deaf. We should learn sign language so we have better accessibility available so that people with hearing loss and who are deaf can feel included in conversation like they're wanted and like they're important, because without knowing sign language, they miss out on a lot of important conversations. Like, for example, like literally a police officer could be saying there was a crime that happened in the community. A firefighter could be like, there's a fire in the building next door, like you need to get out. Or someone might literally be trying to tell them, hey, Sally loves you. But if you're not signing, then the deaf person or the person with hearing loss won't know what you're saying. So I really appreciate that Community showed someone being respectful to people with hearing loss and who are deaf, and they had the character learn sign language and didn't treat her like she was less than of because she happened to not be able to hear. They did have a conversation where they brought up the fact that she uses subtitles a lot. And I think everyone who has hearing loss, I would never say everyone because I don't think there's one thing that every person with the same disorder or same challenges will do technically. But I think most people who have hearing loss and or deaf, they do use subtitles. I tend to use subtitles a lot, so I don't have to constantly be rewinding a TV show. I also find that these subtitles help make my brain pay attention to the show a lot more. Without subtitles, there'd be a lot of shows that I would not be able to watch because of either like heavy accents, a bad hearing day, for whatever reason, I'm having trouble understanding what's going on. So I'm really appreciative of subtitles. So I think Community did a really good job with the scene. The actor who plays the deaf student in Community happens to be hard of hearing herself. If you're enjoying watching me react to these clips that have deaf characters and people with hearing loss in them, please, if this video gets 10 likes, I will react to more clips. That have deaf characters in it and give you all my opinion on how I feel the TV show did on them. I will be the actor who happened to play the main character who's going through hearing loss in this movie happens to be a hearing person, and from what I could look up, he had not struggled with any type of hearing loss. Please subscribe down below, comment, and like the video. The next show I'll be reacting to is Sex Education. And in this scene, the fire alarm gets pulled down, and everyone thinks there might be a fire, so they try and get out of the building. But then they end up getting blocked, and instead of fire, just a person talking about how important accessibility is.
Alright, stay calm, everyone. Please make your way to the exit. Leave your exam papers where they are. Please make your way to the exit.
The teacher's currently telling all the students to leave their stuff, get out of the classroom, get to safety, like most teachers would if there might be a fire in the building. And everyone's getting up, and no one's paying attention to the fact that there's a lady in the room who has hearing loss and can't hear as well as everyone else. I haven't seen like the full show, so I'm not sure if it's something that she just hasn't told her classmates or something that her classmates just keep forgetting about. Because later in the clip, she talks about how she just stopped getting accommodations and advocating for herself because she felt like that was too much, and the school was making a fuss about it essentially, and that she shouldn't have to fight for accommodation as hard as she does, which is true. Like, when someone says they need something, like, if they need an interpreter, like subtitles or captions, or whatever it may be, even if it's an elevator, certain food not to be allowed on the premises because they're deathly allergic to it. Like, we should be respecting the person and telling people, like, hey, this is what they need. This should not be like a big fight from people. Like, people should just respect it and go, yes, we will make sure that happens so you can get good education without any trouble. But instead, the world don't work like that. We're still on the daily having to fight for accessibility for all.
Leave your exam papers where they are.
The lady who's deaf in the show, she's having to look around and see the context clues about what's happening. Like she's having to figure out in a moment's notice, like, do I need to leave with everyone? Why is everyone leaving? Like, is it important I get up? Or can I just stay seated? She's having to make split-second decisions.
Single file.
Eventually, she does realize, like, hey, everyone's leaving, so I probably should leave the classroom too. The teacher's still saying, like, calm down, calm down, calm down. The teacher's having the class go down some stairs, and then he finally realizes when he looks up that towards the bottom of the stairs, it's been blocked off with a bunch of chairs and like bunch of stuff, because one of the students are trying to make a point to the people who just don't get it because they don't have no issues when it comes to like health. And by have issues with the health, I mean stuff like needing an interpreter because you're deaf, or having to use a wheelchair, like stuff that impacts your ability to get good education on the daily.
Very distinctive lines behind me will descend the stairs, exit outside and gather at the muster point. Nothing to worry about. Right, now that's fine.
Once the teacher realizes that they can't get down that way, he's like, we're going to have to find an alternative way to get down from here. And as soon as he's saying that, as soon as he says that, the lady with the hearing loss, she ends up coming out of the door.
They need to find an alternative way to get out. No one knows what's the
She's still trying to figure out what's going on since she can't hear very well. The character who's in the wheelchair, he's saying, oh, it must really suck to not be able to get around to where you need to go.
Not being able to get where you need to go? What's happening? This is very...
And then he finally tells people, he's like, I've asked very nicely for this elevator to be fixed. Why is it not fixed? Like, if you can afford to do sound baths and this and that, you can afford to do something like fix an elevator so wheelchair users, for example, can use the elevator to get to places where they need to go.
Disruptive. Ross, can you please sort out the alarm? I've asked nicely. Multiple times the lift to be replaced and nothing has changed. So yeah, I'm gonna be a little bit disruptive. It's quite frankly, I'm fucked off. I've got other things I need to be worried about.
It's so true. Disabled people have to worry about every other thing that normal people have to worry about, like tests and the grades and what they're going to eat for dinner, all that kind of stuff. So they don't need the extra added pressure of having to worry about, is the elevator going to work? Will I have an interpreter in class? Will they remember to put on subtitles, for example?
Now, whether I'm going to get a good result in my exam, what I'm going to have for dinner tonight. Normal, everyday shit. But instead, I'm here wasting my time explaining why accessibility is a big deal.
Sadly, that's very common when people get called out on like problems they're not dealing with. For example, not having the elevator fixed is very common for people to try to shift the blame instead of being like, okay, the whole school did not fix the problem. What a blame. We need to fix this like tomorrow. Instead, there always will be people who shift the blame going, I thought you would fix it. I thought you were going to fix it. What do you mean you haven't fixed it? Instead of just all coming together and going, we all screwed up. We all have to fix this.
This should be a given. I thought you fixed it. Yeah, it's just fucked. I'm not blaming any one person specifically. It's everyone's fault. Must happen because it's everyone's.
The deaf lady's having to ask what's going on because she doesn't know what's happening. And the dude next to her is telling her what's going on, what's happening, so she can understand the scenario much clearer.
Can afford sound baths, communal harmony bees, save the beach. They can save the beach. They can definitely afford a working lift.
It's very ironic. I find when someone is literally trying to tell you there's a problem and it needs to be fixed, and someone else is basically like, but save the bees, but this problem's more important, but this thing's more important. It's like, they're all important. They all need to be addressed, but right now is not time to compare the need to save the bees with the need for accessibility. Right now it's time to come up with a solution for saving. Right now it's time to come up with solutions for accessibility, because that's the topic that's being talked about. We can talk about saving the bees later.
And I know that that's not glamorous, but it's really...
So, try literally not to be that person when someone's having a conversation with you about a problem they're having, like lack of accessibility in the school. Try not to be that person and be like, but what about the bees? What about the environment? It's like, now's not the time for that. We're solving the issue that's affecting the person right now. We're trying to figure out what's going to happen so that person gets what they need.
really important that when people ask for something that they need, you listen.
Saying saving the bees isn't important. It just understand that right now. Try not to make it about saving the bees. Let's try to keep it on the conversation of, you need an interpreter, you need an elevator, you need subtitles, or whatever it may be. Like, keep it on that conversation. Like, don't try to move it away from this important conversation just because someone said the bees, you know what I mean?
Look, I think this is just one big misunderstanding. He says it's a big misunderstanding. Fix this. This is Cavendish College. You come to... If not a misunderstanding, it's an afterthought. None of you...
That's so true. When people ask for things they need, people should listen and try to provide the thing they need as much as humanly possible. Like, for example, a school should have a working elevator. A school should have a sign interpreter. A school should put on subtitles without having to be such a big fight.
You come to... If not a misunderstanding, it's an afterthought. None of you realise you'd left me behind.
Just now, when college could have burned down.
I really hated when the dude just said, oh, this is just a big misunderstanding. Like, it's not a misunderstanding. If someone told you repeatedly, this is an issue and you're not fixing it, it's not a misunderstanding. It is called lack of accountability. Sometimes it's called laziness. Sometimes it's called you don't think they deserve what they should have. There's a lot of reasons for what a person does, but it had nothing to do with miscommunication. Sometimes it's just that they don't see people with medical conditions or who are disabled as humans, and they'd rather see them suffer instead of being like, hey, let's get you a working elevator, let's get you a sight interpreter. You can have the same access to things that other people have.
I used to sign BSL as a kid, but when I went to secondary school, the access just wasn't there, and I was so embarrassed to ask for it. So I pretend I'm coping as well as everyone else. It's so much work, lip reading, having people speak for me, no note-taking in class. It's so draining. I wish people understood that our problems come from barriers in society, not for our disabilities.
That is so true. When people don't have the tools that can help them succeed in whatever they're doing, it can be very draining when you're having to spend extra mental energy on literally trying to hear what people are saying, trying to walk, trying to get places, for example. Like, for example, when there's music playing in the background and someone's trying to have a conversation, I find that can be sometimes mentally draining because I'm having to focus extra hard to figure out what they're saying and if I need to chime in, if it's important for me to say stuff here. Most people can listen to music and talk and be perfectly fine, but someone with hearing loss, for example, they have trouble. They have trouble hearing, like, conversation going on when there's a lot of background noise, like song lyrics, for example.
Who is that? I'm not sure I've never seen him before. I don't think he goes here. I'm just very passionate. Look, I'm going to call an engineer and we're going to sort.
That's so, I mean, in a way that's so true, because, like, the main problem is not the fact that you can't hear. The main problem is people don't want to put subtitles on videos. People don't want to take the time to click captions when they're showing a video to class. People don't take the time to think, how would an elevator constantly being broken affect those around them?
All of this out, but in the meantime, please, just get back.
They never sit there and question, what does it mean when someone don't get a sign interpreter that they really need? Like, how is that going to affect them? No one ever sits down and thinks about those kind of things. So most of the frustrating things that happen is because the pavements are made for wheelchair users. Not everything has caption like they should. Clothes aren't made in a very, like, accessible way for some people, for example. Because I find that unless you have family who is disabled or sick in one way or another, or you have a friend who is, or you yourself is, like, disabled or, like, sick or whatever, you don't tend to think about accessibility. You don't tend to focus on the fact that, hey, some people need these things, and without them, that's what's really creating the problem, not the fact they have this disorder.
Back to your exams. No, did not. If I sit past your exam, I will. Yeah.
I love when the dude said, just get back to your exam, we'll get this all fixed. That people start standing up and saying, no, not good enough. We're all going to sit here and we're not going to do our exams until everyone gets the access to be able to go to where they need to take the exam. I really loved how the TV show showed that not everyone cares about accessibility like they should. That people who have disorders or who are disabled should be able to get the accessibility things they need without having to fight for it. And more people need to understand why it's important for them to have the accessibility tools they need, like elevators, sign interpreters, or what have you. I think this show did a really good job at showing deaf people, hearing loss people. At least from the clip I watched, they did a good job, is what I'm trying to say. I haven't watched the full show, so I don't know if it's gonna be, like, totally 100% good. But based on this clip, I have no doubt that's probably gonna be. I know that I mentioned some things about the characters in the wheelchair besides the deaf woman in that clip, but I felt like I couldn't fully, like, react and talk about the clip without mentioning all the disabled characters who have been present in the clip. Like, it wouldn't feel like just to focus on the deaf lady, since what they're all saying is very important. So that's why I talked about all the characters who are disabled in that clip. The actor who plays the lady in Sex Education happens to be deaf herself. The next show I'll be reacting to a clip from is Family Guy. Good.
Griffin, say hello to Opie's replacement, Stella. Nice to meet you. What?
I loved how Family Guy showed a deaf woman in the workforce, because a lot of people who are deaf are able to work if they get the right accommodations, so that they can speak with their coworkers and their coworkers can speak with them, for example.
What is this? We doing no secret handshake now? Oh, no, Griffin, she's deaf. Oh, did she read lips? Yes, I can. So if I do this, I can talk about what a sweet rack she has? Yes, but try not to make a boob honking gesture with your other hand while you're saying it. Sorry. Griffin.
I think that this clip from Family Guy showed a really good point that some people, when they find out you have hearing loss or you are deaf, they think it's okay to talk behind your back and just say stuff they shouldn't say or that they wouldn't say to someone who could hear. And society needs to learn to stop doing that because it's not okay. Like, if you wouldn't tell a hearing person about that or do that to a hearing person, then you shouldn't be doing that to a deaf person. It also shows that some people who have hearing loss and who are deaf are able to talk still and use their voice. The next show that I'll be reacting to a clip from, the actor who voiced the character who is deaf in Family Guy happens to be deaf herself. Is Milk on 31st Street. It's about when Santa Claus met a deaf little girl and they had a conversation at the mall.
What? How are you? John? Well, she's deaf. You don't have to talk to her. She just wanted to see you.
I liked how, even though the mother was like, she's deaf, you don't have to talk to her, he went above and beyond and started signing her and having full conversation with her so she felt included. So she could get the full experience like any hearing kid would if they sat on Santa Claus's lap.
You are a very beautiful young lady. What's your name? Sammy. That's a beautiful name. What would you like for a doll and a bear? Well, you shall have them. Wish you a Merry Christmas. Thank you, thank you.
The child actor who plays the little girl happens to be deaf herself. The next clip is from the TV show Waterloo Road that I'll be reacting to. This dude happens to be deaf, and I haven't seen the whole show, so I'm not sure if he had been to a public school or if he was in deaf schools prior to coming to this school. But anyway,
Oh,
he's having trouble figuring out what they're supposed to be doing because the teacher hasn't talked to him good enough. He's having trouble figuring out what he's supposed to be doing because the accessibility isn't up to good enough standards.
try not to copy, Luca.
And instead of making sure he understood what's going on, she decided to call him out on copying instead, which just seems like an attempt to diverge from what's really happening, which is she not making sure he's accommodated enough and making sure that he fully knows what's going on. He asked her what level BSL he was because this is a British show, so they're doing British Sign Language. And she said that she is only level 1 in British Sign Language.
For your patience, Luca, but we can't get another CSW till tomorrow. I know you haven't used this radio aid for a while. I thought you could. If you sit at the front, I've asked Mr. Casey to speak clearly, and I'll stay here in case you need anything.
Yeah, that's really bad. They should not be hiring someone who's level 1 in sign language. I'm sorry, but that's just unacceptable.
Just for this afternoon.
I do understand that interpreters, there's not a million interpreters, so it is hard to find people who will interpret it, who can interpret it, and especially on short notice, so that does really suck.
Culture, right, can be drawn
The school's trying to work with him within their means that they're able to. Because they can't, solve the problem of there's not enough interpreters, there's not enough good interpreters, that type of thing.
Like we from Helman.
I love that Waterloo Road has seen where they made the audio much more muffled so people who don't have hearing loss or aren't deaf are able to understand better why the radio doesn't work very good, why he's frustrated, and how his word sounds to him, for example. And for people who have hearing loss and who are deaf, they can resonate with the character more because they relate to his experience. Because we tend to hear the world much more muffled and sound not as loud as it is to other people. For example, when I'm having a bad hearing day, sound to me is not as loud and very muffled. It's almost like a cotton ball is in your ear. Only you can't take it out because there's actually no cotton ball in the ear. So I relate to the character when I heard the muffling sound because I experienced something very similar some days. He tried telling them that the radio thing they want him to use was not very effective. I know some people use the radio thing in classes with teachers, and it's like with everything else. There'll be varying results. Some people really like it, some people deal with it, some people just can't get on with it. It all just depends on how your brain, your hearing loss works, and how good the technology is. Having to deal with it for the afternoon because they can't solve his issue with the interpreter. The school should hire a lady who's more fluent in BSL than they did. So that is their fault. But what I say is not their fault is, again, the lack of interpreters. They can't, it's not their fault that there's not one interpreter for every deaf person in a school, you know what I mean? It's not their fault that, not everyone learns BSL. They can only work with what we have in this current society.
In the class, and I'm trying to lip read, and I just can't understand what's being said, and it's so frustrating. Could you do that? Sit there in silence. Do that in the class, and I'm trying to lip read, and I just can't understand what's being said, and it's so frustrating. Could you do that? Sit there in silence.
He basically went into his own world because he can't hear nobody. He doesn't know what's happening. It's all very muffled. And he does wear hearing aids, which some deaf people do, and others do choose not to. It depends on the deaf person. It's a case-by-case situation. But in this case, the deaf person has decided to wear hearing aids. Hearing aids just help make sounds louder and clearer, but they're not a replacement for having perfect hearing or even good hearing. So you never hear as good as you did when you had perfect hearing or no hearing loss, for example. So they won't magically make it to where you have no trouble with your hearing. They just make it to where you can hear easier.
Be amongst a crowd yet feel so lonely. My old school was perfect. Everyone signed. All my friends were there, we were deaf together, and I felt we were the same, but here I just feel different. And I'm sorry, but we're not your last school. I know that. I'm trying to fit in, but I just feel so isolated. People think I'm quiet.
That is very frustrating when you don't have the proper tools you need. The sign interpreter barely knows how to sign. They're using the radio and they're trying to lip read and they just don't know what's going on because they can't hear very well. That would be very frustrating for anybody.
But I'm not. I love talking. I love learning. I just need to communicate. To be able to be myself.
Could you do that? Sit there in silence? Do that. I'm sitting.
I loved how that clip from Waterloo Low showed some of the challenges that deaf students face in a public school that's not designed for deaf students. It was so good. They did a great job with it. I haven't watched the rest of the show, so I'm not sure if the whole show is good, but I do know that one clip they did was really good. They did a good job. The character in Waterloo Road happens to be deaf himself. I personally cannot comment on if any of the sign language was done good, well, or bad or not, because I've never learned sign language, whether it's American Sign Language or British Sign Language. So I have no clue if they've done those languages well. That's all the clips I'll be reacting to today. When it comes to shows that have hearing loss or deaf characters in it, I think all the shows that we watched did a pretty good job at showing the reality and the challenges that deaf people and people with hearing loss face on daily. If you made it to the end of the video, please comment down below a red heart to show that you watched the whole video. If there are other movies and videos that you know of that feature a deaf character or one who has hearing loss, please comment them down below so that I can make a part 2 to this video and react to more clips. With deaf characters and people with hearing loss.